Good afternoon. This is Brad Weber with Local Umbrella Live. Welcome to the show. We're at the beautiful IQ Podcast Studios, Attorney King Studios in gorgeous Coronado, California. And I'm here with a very special guest today, Mr. Chris Peters. Chris is a firefighter. Um, thanks for your service. Chris is with the Carlsbad Fire Department currently, and he's got an interesting story to tell. So first of all, welcome, Chris. Thanks for being here today.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
It's great too. So I want to get into a little bit of your background and how you became a firefighter and why and all that stuff, and then we'll
Right.
talk about your current situation with some of the things that happen to firefighters. So give us a little background of how you got to be a firefighter and your
Sure.
past.
Sure. So I was an athlete growing up, and I played Division I water polo, and team mentality and camaraderie were ingrained in me at an early age. And when I finished at UCI, I started a commercial financing sales job, and it was in a cubicle by myself in an office all hours of the day and even into the night. And I just thought, there has to be more. There needs to be more than just
Mhm.
this. And I interacted with people, which was nice, but it was just via over the phone. And after about a year of doing that, I decided to make a dramatic change and find what was really inside of me to help people, to seek that team environment, to seek decision making, rapid decision making, like that, things like that.
Great.
And I talked with my parents who were teachers. I talked to police officers, firefighters, and it just seemed to me that firefighters were always happy. They were always around. They seemed to live nice family lives. And that was the path I took. And I set a goal. And within 5 years, if I weren't a firefighter by then I'd figure something else out. And things
Good for you.
happened rapidly. And within 2 years, I was hired down in National City, and I spent 6 years there. Became a paramedic down there, ran many calls. It's an incredibly busy small town. And then lateral to Carlsbad, where I've been for 6 years, and I've done a multitude of things there. Currently, I'm an engineer, and I work here in town.
Great, great. I have a nephew whose his story is so much similar to you. He's in Boulder, Colorado right now, but he was an
Oh,
engineer,
right.
went to school of mines in Colorado, a really
Yeah,
top
great
school.
school.
Brilliant guy. I'm very proud to have him in the family. And he had kind of a similar story. He was an engineer. He was doing great. He was moving up the ladder, but he just didn't have that. It wasn't
No,
fulfilling. And
yes.
he did exactly what you did. He said one day, he said, you know what, I want to be a firefighter for
Time
all
to
the
make a
same reasons.
switch.
Yeah, it's time to
Yeah,
make a switch. And he's been, I think he's
yeah,
been on the force in Boulder for about 3 years now. And he
that's
loves
great.
it, but I don't get to talk to him day to day. So I don't know the, the other side of the story, which we'll
The
talk
ins and
about a little
outs.
bit. But as far as, you get respect, he says it's so much fun. The little kids just love you,
Oh,
everyone
yeah.
loves you, and you're helping
Mhm.
people and you're saving lives. I mean,
Every
how
day.
much more fulfilling can you get than that? So anyway,
Right.
more about you, but I know exactly where you're coming from with at least that part of the story. So now
Sure.
you're on the Carlsbad, um, uh, at the Carlsbad station.
Uh-huh.
And so tell us kind of why we got together.
Sure. So, years ago, not too many years ago, really. I've been on the job 12 years or so.
Mhm.
Years ago, I never thought I would have been in the position I am today. Yeah, I just didn't connect the dots. I didn't think that it would have impacted me or my life the way it has. And it almost feels as though I woke up this way one day, and everything had just accumulated and piled on my shoulders, and I just didn't feel right. But about well, shoot, 4 or 5 months ago now, I just wasn't myself. Uh, I felt like I lived in this fog every day. I could sleep at work. We could run minimal amount of calls. I could sleep all day at work or all night at work. I could come home and I would just be exhausted. And I couldn't think clearly. I couldn't get thoughts out. And one morning I came in, I slept all night at work. I came in and I just needed to sleep. And so I fell asleep on the couch. And my son, who's 6, came and woke me up. And he said, "Dad, come play. Come play with me." I said, "Yeah." And inside, the only thing I wanted to do was go play, but I couldn't. And I went back to sleep and I slept it off and I slept away playtime. And I asked my wife, I said, "Do I do that regularly?" And she said, "Well, every once in a while you'll do that." We just figure it's what you need. You have a busy work schedule, and that's what you need. I thought, no, something's wrong. And more and more increasingly, I felt as though my life didn't fit in the puzzle piece at home, but it felt like it fit at work, because work is very regimented. It's very scheduled. You show up, you know what you do, you check your gear, you go run calls, and you're done.
Mm-hmm.
And when you come home, it's not scheduled, and there are oddities that happen, and you just have to bend and get used to it.
Mm-hmm.
But I wasn't fitting into that moldable position anymore. I was too rigid. I wasn't reacting appropriately to my boys, who are great. They play, they have fun. They're 8 and 6. They're phenomenal little boys. But I just didn't have the patience to deal with them anymore. And I did at one time, but I didn't now. For example, if they wanted to go ride their bikes in the street, I'd have to furiously follow them. You're high alert, make sure that they were doing everything right, looking both ways, wearing their helmets, almost on the obsessive side, right? The parental side is, yes, you care, and yes, you want to be there, but this was across the line. It was over, and it was obsessive.
Okay.
And so I had these conversations with my wife. I said, how long has this been going on, and what's been going on? And she said, a while, and not years, but a while.
Mm-hmm.
And it made things difficult at home. It made things difficult with them. And so with my boys. And so I decided to seek help. And fortunately, I pre-designate a physician through work comp. So I don't see the department's specified physician. I see one that is designated to handle work comp that I've selected.
Mm-hmm.
And he happens to know what Dr. Murphy does, and knows his program and the outcomes of his program. And he recommended this. And so I'm on the end of 2 months now, and I'm completing treatment, and I saw dramatic improvement almost immediately. And my family saw a dramatic improvement almost immediately.
That's amazing. So let's give
Yeah.
a little background. So Dr. Murphy is Dr. Kevin Murphy. He's in Del Mar,
Right.
and his company's called Mindset SD, or Mindset San
Yeah.
Diego. Peak Logic is another name. But he does. Maybe you can explain kind of what he does and how he helped you, and kind of the
Sure.
process from starting, how you were at day one, and how long
Sure.
and how you are now.
So this is a funny story that I tell people, and it shocked me. But I explain it because I personally feel every firefighter could benefit from this. That's just my belief. And the more I talk to firefighters about it, the more head nods I get, right? That fog, you sleep all night and you come home and you just don't feel right. Yeah, I do.
Yeah, it's not so dramatic where it's black and white, but you need to either pay attention or have someone, like you said, your family. You need to ask them how I am.
Yes, exactly.
You're not quite the same.
And so I was at a friend's house last night, and I was explaining the same situation to him. And I said, this fog, you see, it will sound totally abnormal to any normal person, but you end up with the calls you run, you end up having nightmares, or you see ghosts. And I would do irrational things. I'd have to turn lights on in my dorm room at the station when I'd come back from calls to make sure that this ghost was not in my room. Well, rationally, I know that there is no such thing, but irrationally, I had to do this. It's something that haunts many of us. The longer you're on the job, the more of them you have. And so I explain this to guys. But getting back to your question, Dr. Murphy had me in. He did an EEG, and I feel as though he didn't really know who I was. He didn't know the baggage I was carrying. And we sat in his office, and he looked at my EEG, and he started listing things. He said, "Oh, you sleep and you're tired all the time, and you feel like you're moving through water." And I went, "Yes, that's true." And you're short-tempered, and you don't have patience. If you have children, you don't have patience with your children for just normal things that they do. And I went, wow. And you're incredibly anxious, and I can see this here. And he listed off all these things that are going on. And I went, have you been spying on me? Have you been following me? How do you know all this? And he said, well, I've looked at many of these, thousands, and based on what your EEG shows, I know exactly what you're feeling. And the good news is I can fix that, and I can make you feel better. You just need some time. And I thought, wow, this is incredible. So
there really is a solution, you know, when you thought you were lost.
yes. And that's exactly right. You know, I did feel as though I couldn't find a way out. I wasn't so far that I felt like I needed to hurt myself or anything else, but I did I was underwater and I didn't know how to get out of this position I found myself in.
It was getting worse instead of better, I assume.
Yes, the harder I worked at it, the worse it got.
Right.
And that's something else. That's a common thing I hear with guys in my position or in my situation is you feel like you're working hard for your family. You feel like putting more time in at work or working around the house is what they need.
Right.
When actually they need your mind to be present, and that you can't give them that. It just you're incapable of it. So we started treatment. We started treatment, and it's a daily treatment for me. Not everybody's the same, and that's the PR side of Dr. Murphy's TMS. Is it's personalized and repetitive transcranial magnetic stimulation. And so my treatment is every day for approximately half an hour, and then every fifth treatment I get an EEG, and they monitor how my brain activity is looking and modify my treatment as per that EEG.
Interesting. So tell us a little bit about the difference, because you know from personal experience, the difference between TMS, which some people have heard of. I mean, I've talked to people about TMS, and it's an interesting term, but people are aware of that. But Dr. Murphy's procedure is not your standard TMS.
No.
So
and this is just my brief amount of research online before figuring out, you know, the difference. But transcranial magnetic stimulation prescribed by psychiatrists, psychologists, it's typically one zone of the brain. It's not multiple zones of your brain. And it's usually high magnitude, high amplitude intervals. And so what they do is they crank it way up. They do one zone or one sector of your brain. They don't monitor an EEG, so they don't know what your brain activity is doing. Right. And then they apply treatment like that. And some of the videos I've seen and some of the research I've read says that they do it almost borderline to seizure activity and then turn it down just a little bit. So just under seizure activity.
Right.
And my understanding is Dr. Murphy, as the neurologist that he is, looked at that process and saw value in what it did, but didn't agree with how it was applied. And he has come up with the PR side of the personalized repetitive side or protocol of what he does. And so the amplitude and magnitude are turned way down. You come for a longer time. So you're getting the same amount of energy. It's just spread out over a longer amount of time. But the most important thing that I can see and that I have felt is that it's monitored and applied differently weekly based on how you respond to the treatment.
Right. So it's measured from time to time. You do an EEG is a brain scan. I don't know if that's the right. Basically, it shows a picture of your brain at a certain point in time.
Yes. Electroencephalogram, something like that. There you go. Yeah. Just like an EKG of your head, right?
Exactly.
You monitor electricity through your heart. It's the same thing through your head.
And there's several different parts of your brain, and they all have different functions, from speech and hearing and everything else. And it shows every part of those and kind of shows you the way a perfect brain or a normal brain or a healthy brain looks. And then it shows you, like you said, he looked at your brain and said, you've got some problems here. So he's able to pinpoint it.
Yes.
And the personalized part of it, instead of the TMS where it's kind of one size fits all.
Right.
It can. The metaphor I heard was kind of like a marching band. Yeah, everyone's supposed to march.
Yes.
The music's supposed to play together, and it sounds good. And if you have PTMS like you had, or whatever happened to you, or someone gets hit in the head, some of those guys kind of step aside and go too slow. Some of them go too fast. And, you know, the traditional therapy, as I've heard it, is, you know, drugs, like everything, drug for everything, but it either slows everybody down or speeds everyone up.
Absolutely.
And it's not, you know, just causing more problems.
Right. Or it's not TMS, treating the source.
Exactly. So the TMS can, you know, pick the spot to everybody go this place where everyone doesn't want to go to the same place. So, you know, I've heard some other great results too. You're not the first one I found, but I'm glad you came on the show, because especially you being a firefighter, I mean, this isn't just didn't make a difference to your family. It made a difference to the community. You can be a firefighter again. You can perform your
Yes.
duties and serve the community as well as your family and kind of get back to normal. So,
Yes,
so where are
absolutely.
you now on the scale? You're going pretty much every day.
I was tapering down, so I'm tapering down the treatment. They gave me a week to see how I react without treatment,
Mhm.
and then they project that I'll come back and do 10 more treatments,
Okay,
and then that I should be done. On
great.
average, they told me it takes between 20 and 40, and sometimes people need a little bit extra at the end. Sometimes 20 to 40 works for folks.
That's just like any other part of the body. Everyone's a little bit different, and everyone's
You
got a
got it.
little bit different problems. Some have a minor problem, and some probably have a major problem, and you fit
Exactly.
somewhere on that scale. So I'm
Right.
so happy, for you that you've come back, and I'm sure your family's very happy about it.
Oh
Um,
boy.
so you're telling other firefighters and other, public
It's
servants that
it's funny. It's become kind of this mission of mine. I've spoken everybody I talk to in the fire service. I know they feel how I felt,
Mhm.
or they have felt that at some point in their career.
Yeah,
And so I bring it up to tell as many people as I can, because if I see the benefit, I know there are others that can see the benefit.
right.
It might not work for everybody, but I know there's a benefit out there for everybody. They can try this, they can talk to Dr. Murphy, and Dr. Murphy can tell them whether it will change their lives or whether it won't. But my feeling is, based on what it's done for me, and then I theoretically threw my buddy in a headlock and dragged him in, and I said, "Here you go. You got to try this." And
Mhm.
it's worked for him. He was in the same
Great.
position. So I just try and spread the word and tell as many people as I can. Try and make a difference.
That's great, and I'm
Yeah.
sure coming from you, you're one of the guys, and like you said, you've walked in those same shoes your other firefighters are walking
Right.
in, so, when I'm sure they've seen a difference in you.
Yes.
Yeah,
I'm a different guy.
you're a different guy, so it's very clear to them,
Yeah.
so, yeah, well, thanks so much for being with us,
Certainly.
so happy. It's Chris Peters. If you're up in Carlsbad and you see, the firemen, make sure you give them a little love and
Yeah.
respect, and, thanks so much for your service. I'm so happy for you. Thanks for coming on the show, and Dr. Murphy is Mindset, SD.com here in San Diego. It's running across the stream, down at the bottom. Chris Murphy, that's our show today. Thanks for being here. I want to thank our sponsors, Attorney King, of course, Nikki Rotten's downtown, or downstairs. Um, oh, sorry, I'm forgetting IB Fitness. Who am I forgetting? The Quan Casino, I could forget, and Wilsey Asset Management. Thanks to all of our sponsors. We wouldn't be here without them. Chris, thanks so much.
Certainly.
Service. Have a great day and keep up the good work. And hopefully we'll connect sometime soon in another month or 2 or 6 months, and you'll be even better, I'm sure.
I hope so.
All right.
Thanks, Brad.
Well, thank you. Bye-bye.
Take care.